Food going to waste is responsible for 8% of greenhouse emissions globally. A third of all food goes to waste at some point in the production chain. That was just apples. It would be something like 3.7 trillion apples. We'd be worth something like $1.8 trillion. We've saved 5,000 tons worth of fruit and veg. It's something like 400 double-decker buses. We like to start with the small, start with the personal impact, brings it into reality. We're actually on track to donate 1 million drinks to charity by the end of 2026. Use our business as a force for good, encouraging customers to be more sustainable with their choices. And any kind of impact we can have immediately, I think, is a good step to be making.
Welcome to the Lunch at Work podcast, where we talk to experts about how to make workplaces better.
Hey Ben, welcome to the Lunch at Work podcast. We're delighted to have you. Can you tell us a bit about who you are and what is Flawsome Drinks?
Flawsome Drinks is basically founded to save wonky fruit and surplus fruit and turn it into delicious cold-pressed juice drinks. It's all naturally flavoured. There's no added sugars or sweeteners or anything like that. So yeah, we're very proud of how good they taste with just the natural fruit content. As a business, we're keen to keep progressing the conversation around sustainability for everyone, really, because actually the process of producing food creates significant amounts of emissions. Obviously, waste can be on top of that extra emissions. I think there's a big job we can do about raising awareness and then bringing the case back to food producers and making sure that they're doing their bit in terms of reducing emissions, reducing waste, and so that everyone basically benefits from this lined up supply chain where there's actually more use of products that are perfectly good to be used, less waste, and actually less emissions.
Can you tell us a bit about how Flawsome Drinks started and how it was founded and what motivated the founders?
Two of our founders called Maciek and Karina. So they are both from quite rural backgrounds. They grew up in farming communities, drinking whatever fruit and veg was available in their back gardens, in their orchards nearby. They actually met when they went to university in South Wales. At that point is when they found out about the extent of food waste. They've grown up drinking juices made from fruit that was whatever shape or size they could find. So they wanted to make a bit of an impact and try and reduce food waste. So looking in supermarkets, they'd see that all the fruit was the same size, same shape, and not much variation there when they knew there was that out and about in real life.
Can you tell us a bit about the issue of food waste, what kind of impact it has globally?
A third of all food goes to waste at some point in the production chain. Looking at this third of food waste produced globally, that was just apples. It would be something like 3.7 trillion apples, staggering number. And that's we'd be worth something like $1.8 trillion. The UK alone, that's something like 10 million tons of food. And that's from households, but also from retail, supply chains, hospitality. And that adds up to something like 30 billion pounds worth of food a year that goes to waste. It's obviously a huge problem. That's just in the UK as well, not just from the monetary angle, but actually the greenhouse gas emission. Food going to waste is responsible for 8% of greenhouse emissions globally. So actually by reducing waste, we can avoid emissions at the same time. We're actively telling people how much fruit they're saving in each drink. For example, on the side of apple juice, it tells you this is literally 3 wonky apples in apple juice. Building that slowly, we've gone through a whole process of finding out the impact that our products have in terms of the carbon impact in the supply chain. We're currently getting LCA life cycle analysis done on all of our drinks as well, so we can feed that into the businesses we work with. As a company, we've already done a lot of projects in terms of offsetting or reclaiming carbon. So we work with sustainability projects, wind farm project, a biodiversity project in the Amazon rainforest, and actually some social projects as well, like improving cooking stoves for poorer communities in, for example, in Peru. That reduces the carbon impact and emissions. There's multiple ways we're trying to have a benefit from the product itself, but then also how we're feeding back into the communities and environment as well.
What type of requirements do retailers have that would generate a situation where there's a surplus of fruit and veg?
The supermarkets will give quotas out to farmers, so farmers will obviously try and overproduce slightly to make sure they're not left short on those quotas, and then when they've come to the top of the quota, they'll have a certain amount of stock left over. So that's where we come in and save that. Sometimes there'll be cancelled orders, sometimes there'll be people who are sourcing from multiple locations and then they won't need it from the farmers that we work with, for example. Sometimes there's just fluctuations in demand, or at harvest season there's a real big influx into the market of certain stock, and then actually farmers can't always sell that through their usual routes. The stock gets stored for a while, and actually then when it's brought out of the storage, it needs to be used within a certain period. And again, we can give farmers an option for when they haven't got necessarily a route to market for all of that stock.
So what do you think motivates a consumer to pick Flawsome Drinks over a different drink? And how can we make sustainable choices easy rather than seem like a chore?
We've basically made sustainability at our core, so it makes it a really easy choice for a consumer because it's basically something that's super healthy. It's just fruit in there. There's no added sugar, no added sweeteners, nothing artificial. It's just a very easy swap for people to go to a natural product that is actually helping save waste at the same time.
Educating people about food waste, what kinds of communication strategies have you found that worked well and which ones tend to just fall through?
Sustainability is at the core of our brand anyway, so naturally when we're talking about Flawsome, it kind of implies, there's something better, it's something using something different. We've kind of tried to be a bit playful with it, having a bit of fun on our Instagram, for example. Really nice design kind of adverts and posters that we put in a lot of the sites where we're listed. This site's helped save 600,000 pieces of wonky fruit, so we're trying to be approachable, break it down for people and show the impact that they can have just by making a little sustainable switch.
Can you tell us a bit about how your supply chain works and how your drinks are made?
Rena and Maciek, they actually kind of knew quite a lot of these communities where there was potentially excess fruit or surplus stock at the end of harvest seasons, for example. They've done an incredible job of making a bit of a community, a bit of a link up through all of these farmers and cooperatives. We can source a lot of this surplus fruit or wonky fruit directly from these farms and communities. A lot of the fruit that we source is actually now from a quite small radius, a 30-mile radius around our factory. Save that fruit quite easily by working with these farmers and communities, turn it into quality juice instead.
Flawsome Drinks has turned food waste into something that's exciting. How do we scale that thinking across the industry so that people stop seeing of food waste or fruit as imperfect and rather see it as something that's valuable?
That's partly the mission we were on when we started Flawsome. It's making wonky fruit fun, is making it accessible and also normalizing it, because people have been so used to seeing these very similar homogenous kind of fruit and veg in their supermarkets for a long time, when we know that just isn't the case in real life. So I think this is the first step. People are seeing wonky fruit sometimes pop up in the supermarkets as well. There's a job we're trying to do around bringing to light where the fruit is coming from and the farmers, the communities that actually we can support by bringing this kind of wonky fruit mission to life. We're trying to make it more engaging, easier to access for customers and consumers. And obviously, if it's a great tasting product, they'll come back to it again and again. It makes a really easy choice for them to be better with their choices long term.
Your drinks are to a certain extent standardized because you already know what ingredients you're going to be using in terms of labeling and everything. Do you only take in supply from certain fruits and vegetables that you already have the recipe designed for, or do you try to be flexible and work around? Because this would be a scale issue.
We try and be a bit flexible. We've done a couple of special editions actually.
Yeah, that one, pumpkin and apple maybe.
Exactly, yeah. So last season, obviously, there was just loads of pumpkins left over after the kind of Halloween season, and our founders wanted to do something about it. They got offered something like 300 tons of pumpkins, sorry. So we thought, let's do something with it. In general, for our standard juices, we try and kind of source similar. Actually, with our apple juice, we call it sweet and sour apple juice because we're blending some varieties there, but it gives it a really nice finish and flavor. There is some slight natural variation in them, but we always quality control them and make sure they are up to the standard that we want them to be.
BM is launching a new project called Nova, and it's a collaboration between BM and Luminary, which is a bakery, which is a social enterprise. In terms of marketing, what do you think is more effective to appeal to consumers, focusing on the social enterprise and social impact, or focusing on the product itself and how delicious it tastes?
Flawsome has potentially hit a really nice sweet spot, especially with our rebrand recently. If you make it look appealing in the first place, that's enough to kind of catch your attention. But then having those social impact messages, it's getting more and more important for people, and people are actively choosing those options. If they think it will taste nice and it's got that benefit behind it, then I think that makes it an easy choice for people these days.
I know that Flawsome Drinks has this ambition of saving, I think it's 20,000 tons of surplus fruit and veg before it goes to waste. Can you help us visualize this for our listeners? So obviously that's a very big number.
We've saved 5,000 tons worth of fruit and veg. That's something like 70 million pieces of fruit. We're very proud of that. So to quantify that a bit more, it's something like 400 double-decker buses. 20 million tons by the end of 2026. That's something like 1,600 double-decker buses. We're really trying to ramp up, get the message across to different places, and get it into new areas as well, getting it potentially more into hospitality, on-trade, kind of different offerings in terms of restaurants, and then kind of on-the-go offerings as well.
Do you think visualizing these numbers helps people feel more concerned about the issue?
We actually try to break it down all the way to the individual impact. So on a bowl of orange juice or apple juice, juice, it will tell you 3 wonky apples or 3 wonky oranges. So actually right down from the start, they know they're having a little impact, and it's just kind of normalizes it for them or brings it like into reality for them, because obviously once you start talking about millions of numbers, it gets a bit hard to conceptualize. But we like to start with the small, start with the personal impact, and then we do work with individual sites to say, look, if you've sold 1,000 bottles of Flawsome in a year, that actually equates to 60,000 pieces of fruit. There's a really nice message we can put into different scales that make it appealable for different people, basically.
What do you think the future of food waste looks like? Do you think it's a future where all the waste streams align and there's just zero waste?
Obviously, we're trying to do our bit, but I've seen quite a lot of companies, for example, some catering companies, they have machines that will separate food waste and recyclable waste. There is naturally going to be some waste along the supply chain for a long time. Any efficiencies we can make, though, in the short term, that's really where we want to be working on, basically. Building up levels of emissions, obviously waste, going to landfill, any kind of impact we can have like immediately, I think is a good step to be making. Companies like yourselves are doing good work on kind of trying to stock more sustainable options, thinking about the carbon impact, and then trying to reduce waste wherever possible. Once we start getting it a bit more normalized for consumers, people start seeing that it can be really good quality stuff, can be all done in a really nice way that shows consumers there's actually a really nice way that they can be more positive impacts for the kind of environment. And I guess that's where we see Flawsome as a general company mission as well, providing really nice options that normalize the fact that wonky fruit is out there, but it can still taste amazing.
So do you think the future will be more about changing the perceptions of consumers, or do you think there'll be sort of a technological innovation and revolution that'll help?
One of the first things that needs to happen is a bit of consumer awareness change, or conception change at least, just because that is naturally going to drive a bit the demand down the chain. With Flawsome, we want to be driving a consumer mindset shift so that actually consumers are actively looking for these more sustainable options, and that will naturally push producers and consumers, obviously led potentially by small brands first, but then it will get into the kind of larger production chains as well, that actually consumers are interested in this. It's good for the planet and good for business at the end of the day. So hopefully that can become more of a force for change in the industry side as well.
What's the biggest opportunity for innovation in the industry right now? What trends or developments are you particularly excited about?
There is a real shift in general to kind of smaller, innovative brands at the moment. Not even just ourselves. We're seeing a lot of like kombucha brands, healthy soda brands, kind of fiber drinks coming through. And a lot of these are being led by, these small independent businesses just trying to be something innovative. They've seen a trend, or they want to help people live more healthily. And I think those are all really, really nice trends for bringing something new to the table. Sustainability has kind of been, a key message for a long time. I think that will continue to be of interest for people as well.
What does the 5-year plan look for Flawsome Drinks? What are your big ambitions?
We've actually got a plan to be net zero by 2030, really moving on with our sustainability projects. So we're investing more into the communities that we're buying our fruit from. We're actually doing a lot more for kind of biodiversity. We're going to start investing a lot more in biodiversity of bees. We're really keen to support that in the next few years. We've all heard that's kind of quite an important topic. We're still investing in kind of social and environmental projects like wind farms and community projects as well. We're actually on track to donate 1 million drinks to charity by the end of 2026. So we do a lot of work with Fair Share and the Felix project. And then more generally, we're just trying to use our business as a force for good. Obviously, we're a B Corp, and that's kind of written into kind of the foundations of the business. We just see ourselves as being a business that makes sustainability more profitable for farmers and more engaging for consumers as well.
So would one of your ambitions be in like a distant future for the supermarkets themselves to be taking this surplus or wonky fruit that you're using and selling it themselves?
We want just whatever is produced to be used in some way, obviously, hopefully in the most efficient way possible.
Yeah.
Supermarkets will tend to want this slightly better looking stuff. But, there's markets out there where they will sell by the weight. There's an easy move that supermarkets can make by not wrapping stuff in plastic necessarily. If we just raise awareness of waste and of packaging and of what people can do in their everyday lives, then they'll start choosing the better options. They'll start making that social impact, and they'll start having that feedback to the companies that are making these decisions at a larger scale.
What kind of practical steps could businesses in the catering industry take to reduce their environmental impact and have a more positive difference?
I've seen some really positive stuff already happening in the industry. So a lot of companies are trying to use more of their waste in terms of like recycling basically food that didn't get used, or maybe byproduct coffee grounds. I've seen them being used in brownies, for example. I've seen like offcuts from vegetables being made into soups. I know there's a company called Waste Not that actually sources a lot of like wonky fruit as well and sends it directly into a lot of catering outlets. There's stuff that you can do on sourcing, and then also on using your kind of excess production or maybe waste products. There's also bits you can do around encouraging customers to be more sustainable with their choices. We're using cutlery and plates instead of using disposable stuff, encouraging them maybe with some placards or adverts to say this is a more sustainable choice for lunchtime. If, for example, if it's a veggie lasagna that has less carbon footprint than a meat option, just kind of putting those cues out there for customers to realize the impact again that they are having as an individual that could add up to something bigger in the end as well.
And what is your favorite?
Either the apple and rhubarb sparkling can or the apple and strawberry one. We did a full rebrand in the last 6 months, so we're just filtering through stock, and as you can see, this is our new slightly more premium branding. We think it really shows off the kind of quirkiness of our product while showing people that it's a really quality product. So we've got 4 key ranges. So we've started off with our traditional cold pressed juices, really our best selling product range still. They were where we started as a brand and what we're most proud of. Most of them won Great Taste Awards as well. We then moved into sparkling juice cans. So these are 60% cold pressed juice, 40% sparkling water, no added sugar, no added sweetener. We let the fruit do the talking. We've then got our health booster ginger shots. All 4 flavors are based on ginger, but then we've got different ingredients and different flavors which give them extra nutritional benefits. Our newest range is actually our juice cartons. So these are 75% cold pressed juice, 25% natural water. We're actually the first brand to do a paper wrapper on top of the paper straws. Even with the cartons, we wanted to try and avoid any plastic that we could. The single-use plastic, we're all very aware it's kind of building up and affecting our environment. You know, microplastics we've heard about recently as well, getting into our bloodstreams and being potentially unhealthy as well. So we just wanted to use infinitely recyclable packaging like glass and aluminium.
I've sampled these and I think they would actually be pretty good as a cocktail mixer. Has anyone ever done that before?
We've done a couple of trade shows recently where obviously we wanted to show off the versatility of the drinks. Actually, some of our sparkling cans, for example, our rhubarb and apple can tastes amazing with some gin. Got a couple of recipes around that. With the rise of tequila coming through now, we've actually done a tequila and apple and superberry juice. Some of our cocktails we've also done like in a winter warmer kind of cocktail. So actually includes our apple juice, our ginger shot, and you can either do that as a mocktail or a cocktail. You include some rum in there as well.
I'm going to have to try that. If our listeners had one takeaway from this podcast, what would you like it to be?
We can all make positive changes for the world. There's very simple little things everyone can in their everyday lives that just makes a difference for the world and for the communities around them, making a positive impact and a positive little change with every little choice you make.
So Ben, thank you so much for joining us at this Lunch at Work podcast.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, nice to be welcome to you guys. And I've always thought WSH and BM are really at the forefront of kind of moving forward with environmental sustainability kind of actions. So it's great to be working with you.
This podcast is powered by BM Caterers. Contacting BM is the easiest way to start your journey to a better workplace experience. Click the link in the description for more info.